The atom, the smallest measurement we can use for matter. In a sense, we can trace the origin of all existence to this very tiny unit. The root of matter is the atom. But what about our desires? Is it possible to trace our desires down to one simple iota? I am your host, and today we will be discerning the truth about the origin of our desires. Since people are by nature self-interested, they tend to make decisions that they believe will produce the best outcome for themselves. Notice the word believe. See, no matter what we choose, we need to have faith that the outcome in the decision we make will be preferable, since we cannot see the future and know for certain what outcome each action will produce. What we put our faith in is what we believe is best for us. According to the Bible, people are supposed to put their faith in God by loving Him and being obedient to Him, and in turn, He will love us and save us from our sin. The problem is that Christians, including me, more often than not, struggle with this concept and in turn put our faith in things not of God to give us our desired outcome. Intellectually, we know that God is the origin of all goodness, but we have a hard time believing this in our broken hearts. Take, for example, sexual desire. We know intellectually that sex is something which is sacred and needs to be reserved for marriage, but in our hearts, we are often led to believe that momentary sexual release will provide a greater sense of joy in the moment. However, after we do this, we often feel a sense of guilt, shame, and conviction. This is because people were not designed to be satisfied by sin, so when we idolize sex, or a bigger house, or more money, the feeling quickly fades and we are left guilty and ashamed to then, once again, desire more sex, more money, and an even bigger house. You see, it's the same for any sin: greed, wrath, deceit, envy, etc. So, what is the origin of why we do what we do? Or in other words, what is the atom of the desire to either trust and obey the Lord's commands, or defy our Master and indulge in sin? The origin is traced back to the story of the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve are given a choice: either trust in God and what He has said is good, or defy Him and define what is good for themselves. When we sin, we are always making the decision to define what is good for ourselves. The Apostle Paul experienced this exact conflict when he writes in Romans, "We know that the law is spiritual, but I am unspiritual, sold as a slave to sin. I do not understand what I do, for what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. As it is no longer I, myself, who do it, but it is sin living in me. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. Now, if I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer I who do it, but it is sin living in me that does it." Sorry if I messed that up. There was a lot of do's in that passage. So, in summary, we have established that our evil desires are linked to sin, and our sin is linked to defining good for ourselves. All good and holy desires originate in the belief that God Himself is good, and therefore we ought to obey His commands. Understanding this fundamental principle on the origin of our desires can help us to identify if an action we are about to take has its origin in the striving for holiness or unholiness. Thank you for watching.